Well, welcome to the Shaun Newman podcast. Today is another Guardian Blue Collar Roundtable. Tooz has got a funny quip here, I'm sure, about it being a white collar roundtable. It's put together by Tooz. I got to change it up, Tooz. We had a little glitch in the start of this sucker, so we're changing. Anyways, it's a Guardian Blue Collar Roundtable, Guardian White Collar Roundtable. Tooz is going to have something fun. What do you want to say, Tooz? What do you want to say?
Nothing at this point. You totally ruined my joke.
What's your joke?
The point of the joke, folks, is that we've got a whole bunch of blue-collar problem solvers who are tired of what's going on in their communities and they want to get involved. And now that they're becoming politicians, it's become a white-collar roundtable because they're fucking suits now.
Thanks, Tooz.
Great joke. Thanks for coming out. Try the
You really missed on the enthusiasm of it. I don't know what upset you so much. It is a Guardian Blue Collar Roundtable. We're back. It's been a while. And we've got a group of people running for local elections in their municipalities. And before we get to that, a little note on Guardian Plumbing and Heating. These guys have been keeping homes, farms, and businesses running smoothly since 2010. All the farmers out there still in the fields. Guardian's efficient grain dryer and Guardian power stations aren't just available here in Lloydminster. They're available all across Canada. The power station is an absolute game changer, giving you 2-for-1 utilities, heat, and electricity from the same reliable system. It's an innovative way to keep your operation running efficiently and save on energy costs. And whether it's expert service, cutting-edge power solutions, or advice you can trust, Guardian Plumbing and Heating has your back. Just check out Guardian at guardianplumbing.ca. Now, we got a bunch of problem solvers on the show today, Tooz. You're the one who put this all together, and I know you're upset with me because you had a joke, and I just, folks, what
the first time it was great. The delivery was awesome. My timing was impeccable, and you're like, no. We're gonna decide we have technical issues and start all over again.
You know what? I'm feeling a little spicy from the latest mashup and from every time you stick things in the show notes and don't tell me about them. Mm-hmm. So it's my way of getting back to
twins.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. All right. We got a whole bunch of things going on today. We got a bunch of guests in here. We're going to have them introduce themselves, what they do for work, and where they're running. I don't know. And I suppose I could tack on why you're running. We'll try this. We'll try this
Which
again.
Straw broke each of your camels' backs on this?
Correct. Drew Mckay, you've been a Blue Collar Roundtable guest before. We'll start with you and we'll work our way around.
Hello, my name is Drew Mckay. I'm out in Clearwater County, the Rocky Mountain House area. I'm oil field guy, electrical and instrumentation. And I've decided to run for council because it seems that this council just hasn't been listening to anybody in the county. And they've now decided that they're going to be in direct conflict with farmers and ranchers by starting to purchase land within the county. So that, I guess, was the straw that broke the old camel.
Justin.
Hello. Justin Stevens, Stettler County. I'm actually running for re-election, so this will be my second term. I felt a sense of community service. If you're willing, if you get engaged and you're making complaints, you have to be willing to step up and do something about it. Far too many people throw stones from the distance, keyboard warrior types, but never actually contribute to the solution. So that made me want to run.
Shanon.
My name is Shanon Hines, and I am running in Ward 1 of Foothill School Division, just southwest of Calgary. I was a teacher until 2021, and honestly, I loved teaching, but the system frustrated me to such a degree that I am eager for an opportunity to try to change some things up. I feel that things have been just continually dumped on the front lines, and there's more paperwork all the time. There are more staff dealing more with paperwork than with students. And I do think that there are ways that we can affect classroom conditions that aren't even being looked at.
Finally, Shaun Rue.
I'm Shaun Rue, mixed cattle and grain farmer in the MDO Wainwright, running for councillor. And I wouldn't say I had any grievances or any major political reasons for running as a councillor. My wife Trish's uncle was the Reeve in RMD for 30 years, and he's retiring, and he suggested to me that I should run, and I decided to take a swing on it. And basically, I just want to contribute and try to guide, try to guide the municipality in a good direction. Um,
Well, me and Two's okay. So where this conversation started on bringing all of you here was we were looking at not only the mashup community but the podcast community and how many people are with the elections coming up October 20th, how many people were putting their hats in a ring. And Two's thinks it. Well, I know I shouldn't put this in Two's. The way I wrote it down is these are some of the last people you would expect to put their hats in the ring because they're busy running businesses, they're blue collar workers, they're making the things move that need to move, and instead they're putting their their best foot forward, trying to affect change in their communities. Twos, would you agree?
I would
with
say that's a fair recap of my thoughts on it. Yes.
So when we get to this election coming up, what is like when you sit and look at Alberta, and you're looking at your different communities, I don't know if there's one just thing that we can start on, but certainly like how easy of a decision was it to decide to do this? Because I hear all your stories and I'm like, yeah, there's some commonalities here of like you're probably all very busy people, and this is a tough world to go into.
It was an incredibly tough decision. So it's very demanding time-wise. I have my own oil field construction company, and there's several things that you have to get over in order to put your name in the hat. The first is I lose out on tens of thousands of dollars every year just for sitting in council.
Why is that?
So there's a salary sacrifice. There's clearly a time sacrifice. And the best way I can explain this in a small rural setting is if you want to coast and do the bare minimum, it is the gravy train with biscuit wheels. If you want to do a good job and make changes, it is nearly another full-time job time-wise.
Twos, you were going to ask why do you lose out on why does it lose you tens of thousands of dollars?
Like are you getting yeah, go ahead.
So the way our remuneration works is we work on a per diem per day. So if we go to a full day of council meetings, we are eligible for $275. And anyone that's worked in the oil field construction will tell you that the wages that you're missing out on are way north by a wide margin. So to skip out on your quote unquote real job is quite a hit to take.
I assume, Justin, then you would probably agree with, or at least gone down the thought process. On the other side, if I don't get involved and continue to see things fall apart, although I can go to the oil field and make a bit more money, probably a lot more money. Who am I kidding? At the end of the day, the society around me and my community around me is falling apart, and somebody needs to step in and do it.
100%. And for me, a lot of that kind of light bulb moment was when I had kids, because you get more and more involved in the community and all the nonprofit groups and sports groups, and you'll notice that you see the same circle of people that show up to volunteer at every group. And at a certain point, you kind of have that reckoning where if I'm not part of the solution, then I'm just another one of the problems. So you feel obligated to get involved and to try and make your community a better place for your children.
I know I'm going to say this a couple more times, but feel free, folks, as we go along here to just hop in, because a round table is always better when people just hop in if they hear something they want to talk about. I mean, Drew, I can't see you, but you're a guy who runs a business. You're about as flat out as any one human being I've met. Was this, you hear Justin talk about the money loss. I assume you're like nodding your head in the background somewhere of like, yep, that's true, but this is important.
Yeah, certainly, Shaun. The financial side of it is part of it, right? And I'm lucky enough to have great guys working for me, and I'm lucky enough that my wife is self-sufficient at the farm. She can take care of the cows, right? But it's the time, it's the things I'm gonna miss, right? Around home, and the things I'm gonna miss with the kids, because they're in high school, so they're doing all sorts of amazing things and playing all sorts of sports, and it's more that sacrifice that concerned me, that kept me out of this. People have been bugging me to do this for a while now, and I didn't want to take that little bit of time that I have and spend it in a political theater when I can be spending it with the kids. But it's at the point now where somebody has to do it. So here we are.
Well, what exactly is going on with them buying land? Why are they doing it, and what problems is that creating?
Well, originally there was a purchase of land just outside of Rocky that the thought was they would build a new building there and move the county offices, but it was going to be tens of millions of dollars. So the people said, no, we're not having any of that. And then just recently, a couple months ago, they bought another quarter of good farmland, which if you live in an agricultural municipality, the biggest fight is to preserve farmland.
Mm-hmm.
So the county purchased this quarter, paying a record-setting amount. They paid $1.8 million for 140 acres. That's well beyond any land sale in Clearwater County before. And they did it in a manner where there was absolutely no transparency. They utilized a clause that allowed them to provide no notification. It wasn't even discussed at a regular council meeting. So it was only the council members that knew that they were going to start in on this auction and bid on this quarter. So,
did they know? Was there a connection between council and the owner of the land?
No, but I mean, it was on whatever it is, QL Bid or one of those big auction sites. So it was well known that the land was coming up for auction.
Mm-hmm.
But they were bidding under an alias. And then after it came out that it was the county that ended up winning the auction, their justification was that they believe that the town of Leslieville, this small hamlet that hasn't expanded in 40 years, is going to need room for expansion.
Wait. Before we go, so wait a second. The county was in an auction and used an alias so that nobody would know that it was them bidding on it.
Yeah, it's as crazy as it sounds, Shaun.
Was it at least a goofy
ridiculous
name like Turd Ferguson or something?
Well, unfortunately, the auction was outside of my area. Like, it was about 15 miles away, so I wasn't even paying attention to it. So that's just from guys that were bidding on it that told me about that part. So
it is amazing how much of a hot button item farmland preservation has become. If you think one quarter is controversial, wait till you have a solar developer applying for 16 quarters at a go, and taking that out of farmland. That's when it gets really controversial and people come out of the woodwork.
yeah, and we're lucky to have a lot of people that are strongly opposed to any and all green and renewable projects, since none of them are green or renewable or will ever produce enough energy to even justify themselves. So we're in good shape out here that way, even though the Alberta Utilities tries to shove them down our throat on a regular basis. But
so there's something the public is not greatly aware of, is that municipalities have extremely limited input into any green energy applications whatsoever. If the AUC approves it, it will go forward. The absolute best we can do is negotiate some conditions, but we have zero control of whether that will be approved or not.
Yeah,
And
and there's a little bit more to that too, is that people don't realize that none of this stuff is regulated under Alberta Energy. So, like, we had a development of wind farm come up north where I live, and none of that stuff, like the landowners just assume that, these guys building the windmills are gonna put the roads along the near the road allowance around the edge of the field, and you're gonna get paid compensation when they come across the land. Well, none of that happened, and that's because it's kind of like a Wild West. There's no regulation when it comes to these renewables, and people don't realize that. So, like, I know in our municipality, they've actually started doing a lot of education seminars, trying to get, some landowners like, look, this stuff doesn't just happen as if you got an oil well.
Mhm. Well, that was I was talking with Shane Getson about this a while back, and that was the large impetus behind the moratorium that they put on renewables. That 6-month moratorium was to actually get some stuff written down, and he used the exact words you did, Shaun, which was Wild West. Yeah.
Shannon, you were looking to hop in.
Just that there are a couple of solar projects in our area, and there is a community group that is trying to fight those. So, will community members have very much say into whether or not those go ahead?
Ultimately, no, not at this point. It's all the AUC that has the final say on it right now. So that's why conversations like this are good, because as municipalities, we can utilize the RMA to push back against the AUC. And hopefully that's going to be one of my priorities, is to put the control of these projects in the hands of the municipalities and not the province.
Now,
so
maybe
the
just
local,
for everybody listening, though, we could just explain a few acronyms, though.
Okay, well, the RMA is the... Go ahead, Justin.
AUC is Alberta Utilities Commission. They're the regulator in that department. RMA is the Rural Municipalities of Alberta. So 69 rural municipalities make up the membership. Is there any input by the local neighbors? Yes, but it's limited power. Part of the changes that the UCP made is that the local neighbors have standing, if they so choose, to go to the AUC hearing. And they did do another tweak that somewhat leveled the playing field and created a cottage industry. And that is that group of locals can get their legal fees paid for by the applicant. And it has created a cottage industry of lawyers that meet each other every week in front of the AUC, and they just rotate clients. And the hatred is palpable between these guys after they argue about different projects day after day after day throughout Alberta. So there is some limited involvement that the locals have, but there is a distinct power dynamic there that's in play.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, if some solar wind developer comes in and says, like, do they have to own the land to get the... Okay, so the AUC can potentially just rule and say, these schlubs are coming in and they're putting 6 windmills out in your pasture.
Well, the landowner has to have signed off on it.
Okay.
It's a lease,
the
just like any
landowners,
other lease.
yeah, the landowner's going to get a package. I know what happened here. It happened in a few different places. One was in the MD Wainwright, actually, the Holt Huttery colony. They started with, sign this piece of paper. We're going to do wind testing. That's how it started. And then they would put up a wind tower, monitor it for 5 or 10 years. And there was supposed to be windmills going up in that area. And actually, the neighbors did get that one stopped because of the way they were going to route the power lines. That's the only reason it got stopped. Was, because of transmission lines. They couldn't, there was such a fight that they just gave up and then built the wind farm north of me instead at a different hunter colony. But they basically, you give up your rights. Once you sign a paper, that's it. They can come in and like you really have to pay attention to what you're signing.
That's correct. So it is a private contract and agreement between these applicants and the landowner. But the anchoring point for a lot of our local landowners is they are used to oil and gas and the rules and how they operate. And that is markedly different than what green energy uses. And I can understand why people are willing to hear them out, because the terms that are being offered are
Well, it's good
very,
money.
very, very attractive money. Like you're well north of $1,000 an acre every year for 25 years. Like your profitability wise, I can understand why people would entertain the offers. Now, where I want to really push the education piece is with oil and gas. It's operated for so many decades and generations in our area. That's the anchoring point that people use, and it is so much different. So depending on how that contract is written, we have landowners in Alberta that are responsible for the reclamation of the green energy, if that's how the contract was agreed to and structured. Whereas with oil and gas, they are responsible. There is a backstop with limitations that is grossly underfunded on the orphan well. There is an annual lease that you get. The oil company is responsible for weed control, site access, all those sorts of things. And this is what people are used to. So they're caught off guard. And many of them have signed questionable deals thinking that the new applicants are the same as the old.
So if I understand correctly, the major, like the money is going to be hard to turn down, is what you're pointing to, Justin. And then a major difference, because you go, well, everybody looks to how oil and gas runs in this area and how oil companies have to deal with the landowner and reclamation and just parts of the deal. And they assume that the green energy deals coming in are very similar. But if they read the fine print, that's not the case. Now, after the moratorium, has that changed? Like, have they addressed some of these pitfalls?
Some of them, yes. So they do require a security. The security comes in late in the project, in my opinion. So it's a decade down the road before they have to start putting up the security, and it gets progressively larger as the project ages. But some of these projects have changed hands 4 or 5 times before they've ever produced power. So requiring some mystery sixth company that may or may not be utilizing this 10 years from now to provide a security doesn't give us a whole bunch of solace.
Well, no, 10 years is an eternity for a green energy project. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find one that's made it that long. So they're walking away from these projects based on the loss of profitability. And essentially the landowner is just left with the disaster that you can picture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only that, like I know this has come up on the show before, Shaun, but it's the other thing that they're doing with this land. Like a lot of these early leases were for the entire quarter section or half section or however many acres they leased from you. And then they're actually using that as title to borrow against. So if you say you wanted to buy a quarter, you go to the bank says, well, no, this quarter already has a lien against it from this conglomerate in the UK. You
But they
can't
don't own
actually
it.
buy more land. Well, I know they don't own it, but with a lot of these early leases, that's what they were doing. They're pulling your equity along with leaving you with this complete disaster. The crackpot he's very well educated and versed on this.
We've talked. Okay, so all of you are getting involved in your upcoming elections. Green energy obviously seems like it's a common thread. Drew, you mentioned the fact that your area buying land in an auction under an alias, which is questionable at best. At worst, it's I don't even know what to tack on to that. So there's things going on in your different areas that are obviously getting you all involved. Shanon, why are you're running for school board? What is it in your area that you see happening that you're like, I just got to do this. I got to find a way to get involved?
Well, honestly, I think education in general has been politicized for years, and we need to kind of get back to some basics. I think the public sector tends to add complexity, and we need to simplify some things because there are levels above the front line that are making it harder for teachers to do their jobs because their tasks are being added all the time. And I mean, the level of behaviors that we're seeing in schools now, if you've got 2 or 3 severe behaviors, you do not have very much time to dedicate to other kids who need help. And there seems to be no other supports, but there's extra paperwork. So we pretend we're doing all these things, but in reality, there's less help for students and for teachers.
Do you have any thoughts? As we sit here, we got a teacher strike going on, and what me and Tuz were just talking about on the mashup. We're like, wonder if we can get a teacher on that can even and I know you're not an active teacher anymore, but like, do you have any insight on this? Like, because it is like it's just silence. I don't know. Like you're watching it play out, and you got how many thousands of kids not in school and after school sports and on it goes. You have any thoughts on the current strike?
Well, first of all, I think that if you were a teacher, we were always told that if we spoke out against any policy of our school division, that was grounds for instant dismissal. So teachers have to be really careful what they say publicly. And the only entity that's kind of allowed to speak for teachers is the Alberta Teachers Association. So right now you've got a fight between the province and the ATA. And I think that teachers do have some issues that they're fighting and that the job is getting more difficult all the time. I don't know that the solution is in a politicized fight between the province and the ATA. And I mean, from my own experience, I was teaching when the NDP was in. Teachers got 0% raises, and if there was more money that went into education, it didn't make it to the front lines. So I think that more could be done between the school board and the actual teachers if we looked at what can we take away, because I feel the school board is always looking to add things and it detracts from the actual core work, if that makes sense.
Yep. To me, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm curious. I got a group of men off to my right on here. You all got kids. You're seeing what's happening. You hear a teacher, like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one sitting here going like, what do you do with this? Right. Because it's like, no, as Shannon says, no teacher can say a word because they can face disciplinary action for doing so. So you have this fight going on. And I don't know. We all sit here and go, what's going to happen? Like, do they just want more money? Is that what it's about? Is it about the capping of class sizes? Can they even do that? How would that affect things? I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking to myself, but does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think that problem is not dedicated to that one professional association. I think it's more widespread than that. On my first term on council, we got more and more involved in, say, healthcare, for example. And there's a whole series of professional associations there. And we've gotten a ton of feedback that doctors are scared of the College of Physicians, nurses, teachers, and some of these professional associations seem to have taken the power to their head a bit, and there is some bullying and intimidation going on. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, I think it doesn't matter where you are in the public service. I think most Albertans want to see more teachers on the front line and more doctors and more nurses and more X-ray techs. But somehow more money gets sucked up to other levels all the time.
Typical bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
The bureaucracy will grow until it can sustain the weight of the bureaucracy. But on another topic, or another angle from this topic, is there has been a serious societal shift on how we raise our kids and what the expectations of that school is. And schools all too often become the dumping ground for what was historically a community or family responsibility. And I think we need to look internally at what we're doing as communities, because if we expect the school system to educate our kids, great. That's the expectation, always has been. But we also want them to feed our kids. We want them to provide language skills. We want to provide counseling. We're going to teach them a second language, and then we want you to provide after school activities until we get done work. And if our expectation is that schools are the catch-all for kids, this system will always fail. And this is a societal issue, not saying who's responsible, other than more parents need to be engaged and involved and responsible for their kids. If you can't be responsible for your kids, what is it in life that we can expect you to be responsible for?
That's a great point.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
another issue that we see is like the ATA and the province are having this big political fight. I don't know. My opinion is it kind of all stems from immigration. I mean, we've had so much immigration coming in, and we don't see it out here. Like we're small rural schools. Most of our school population is declining actually in all of our areas, but like they're talking about classroom sizes and not having like in the cities, the classrooms are huge, the schools are massively overpopulated. A lot of these kids don't speak English. And so I think that's a major catalyst in the fight, and nobody's really talking about it. And I don't know, it seems like
As Chuck
Yeah.
Rodnick would put it, you're a noticer.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
I guess just to add to that, to compound the problems, I mean, obviously the ATA is not representing the majority of teachers. That's pretty clear. That they have a political motivation to make Danielle Smith look as poor in the public eye as possible. So you've got that on top of immigration. And then I don't know when this happened, but as a society, we decided that we had to put kids with learning disabilities and special needs in the same class as everyone else. So what that does is that takes, whatever percentage, depending on the amount in the class, out of the teacher's time, just assisting kids, where in the past there was rooms and specialized teachers available to work with these kids. So they got a better education. And the kids in the classroom, in the conventional classroom, also got a better education. Now, everyone seems afraid to admit that that system worked better, and everyone's afraid to. It's a bit of a political grenade to say that, kids with disabilities aren't going to benefit or aren't benefiting from being in the general classroom. Why that's so scary to say, I don't know, but it needs to be said.
Well,
And
would you
my
like to be the teacher who pulls a parent aside and says, "Look, your kid is retarded. We have a special bus for him." Right?
Well,
It's
I
an
mean, your
awkward
mom did
it's
it,
an awkward
so
conversation.
I
yeah.
had no idea that you had spoken to my parents before, Tooz.
Well, I think teachers are quite frustrated with inclusion. When it was first brought in, teachers were told, "Oh, don't worry, those students will be supported," and then they've just taken the support away. So
Hmm.
it's not working as being practiced. And,
Sh-
you know,
Shannon, how many years did you teach?
20.
20. From year
Hmm.
1 to year 20, when you look back on it, how much did it change from day 1 to, I don't know what day that is, but 20 years later?
Well, like the what I consider to be a bad behavior at the beginning of my career and what I consider to be a bad behavior at the end of my career, dramatically different.
How so? Like, what was a bad behavior 20 years ago to now?
Well, I taught a child who had a behavior code and spent some of his day outside of the classroom in a resource room, and he was a walk in the park. By the end of my career, there were, we were seeing children who part of their individual program plan included, and I mean, I taught early elementary, like, so it included evacuating the rest of the class if they had a meltdown. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and since I have left the school at which I was at, the police were called apparently over an incident involving a grade 2 child. So
So, just to make it simple, more money doesn't fix this problem, correct?
yes,
Well,
and I
more
mean,
money doesn't fix any problem.
Well, they've upped the amount of funding, but yet we've got less EAs and teachers haven't gotten raises. So
yeah,
where is the funding? Look at your school divisions.
yeah,
Look at the
and
raises that your superintendents and your COOs and your CEOs and your CAOs have received in every school division. It's disturbing. Like, these
yeah,
people are making insane amounts of money.
yeah. Well, and I do think that they have changed the way they deal with these things. So, for instance, in my former school division, um, which is not the one I'm running in, but they now have, instead of an early literacy teacher in schools where kids were given some small group help, they now have early literacy coaches. So I've heard this kind of secondhand in fairness, but so now you will teach a lesson and this coach will from central office will come and watch you, and then you'll have a meeting about it, and then they'll teach the same lesson, and you'll talk about it. Like, I would argue we need all hands on deck, and a far better use of that time and energy is to have both those teachers, wherever possible, working with kids.
I do see some parallels between the school system and the municipality system because there's a severe disconnect with the level or scale of problems that some of our large urban neighbors have versus
Mhm,
the rules. And it is a
mhm,
markedly different problem. So we're fortunate in our school division where we haven't seen the classroom spikes that we've seen in the large cities. We have a lot of these other benefits. And in some ways, we've had rural schools closed down, which are
mhm,
pretty detrimental to the villages and hamlets when it happens.
Yeah.
But one of the resolutions that we put forward was that the province has to quit centralizing power for all the government jobs in Edmonton and Red Deer and Calgary. And if you want to turn the tide on urbanization, and they're spending billions right now trying to build school capacity. How about we take the AUC and we create a regional hub in a rural community, or the AER or Alberta Environment? Not everyone needs to be employed in downtown Edmonton, because we have capacity in our schools right now. We have the infrastructure, and what do we get in return? The urbans are very, very upset because of grants in lieu of taxes. Well, you know what? If you moved 100 jobs and 100 families out to my community, you can keep the tax money for the business, because I will happily accept those people, those jobs, and the economic spin-offs that come with it. I don't need taxes from that one individual building. We're good. It is such a net benefit to our community that gets funneled to the large urbans. And anytime you get to these broad organizations like ATA, the problems that happen in Calgary and Edmonton are not the same scale of problems that happen in rural Alberta. And it's hard for one group to represent both. And I think that's lost in this conversation.
And I would agree with that to a fairly large extent. However, in terms of behaviors, like I taught in a town, and we still saw increasing behaviors coming in. And some of that's societal, and I don't know that the school board can fix it, but we need to look at some different ways of dealing with it. And as a person on the front lines, I felt like the higher ups were not interested in anyone's perspective. And that doesn't help solve any problems.
Question. Now, Shannon's a little different than Drew, Justin, and Shaun, but running for municipal elections to be a representative of your community, we've talked about some of the green and how that's coming into respective communities. We've talked about education and some of the problems there. Immigration has come up. How much of this can you affect? And this is probably to start with a question for Justin, because you've been doing it. Like, how much of this can you lead your community on? Because Justin, you talked beautifully about parents need to take control of their families and their lives in order for things to change. By running for to be a representative of your community, how much can you impact by being in that position?
I'm not naive. There is no silver bullet, and it is an entire series of small little changes, and you cannot turn a key. But if you can slowly but surely help one or two people at a time, that is a noticeable change to their life. I mean, when you talk about these grander scale issues, this is where we have to pool together, and this is the strength in RMA, because as an organization, we do have some sway with the government, and so many of our issues, we're more attuned to it because we're the closest level of government, but we don't necessarily have the power to change the laws or regulations that are causing some of these issues. So that's where we do rely on RMA, and to their credit, they are very successful.
Okay,
Yeah,
you had
lobbying
mentioned
through RMA.
Go ahead.
I just said lobbying through RMA. Like, that's what you're doing as a municipality.
There is a sense that there's a parallel between the federal and the provincial system that we as rurals feel sometimes, where we're sort of taken for granted at times. People just assume rural Alberta is going to vote blue no matter what. So why are we going to dedicate resources and time and money? There's votes to be gained or lost in the urban centers. So at certain times, we do feel disenfranchised. And there's a lot of parallels to Alberta and the federal government in that way, because there's no votes to be gained in Alberta for the Liberals, so why bother?
Mm-hmm.
Twos, you were going to mention something.
Yeah, Justin, we were talking the other day about the policy with grants for water systems.
Yeah.
Do you wanna add or bust that down for us?
So once you dive into grant funding, it has very narrow definitions and parameters to what is eligible and what isn't. One of those definitions that we continually fight is what is a transmission line versus a distribution line, because one's eligible and one isn't. And you would think that the size or volume or number of people served, that would be involved in the definition. And it's not. It's not at all. Where this water line or water system would terminate may determine your eligibility. So if it ends at a urban center, a town, a city, a hamlet, it's eligible for 90/10 Water for Life grant funding
From the provincial government.
From the provincial government. So there's a water line going out to a hamlet that has 6 houses in it. It's close to 20 kilometers worth of line. It's covered. There's an area in my ward specifically where I have a subdivision of 150 lots. We need 4 miles of line. It's not eligible because it's a subdivision. If it was a village, we're good. If it was a hamlet, we're good. If it was a town, we're good. And there's such a severe disconnect where these rules are so tightly defined that it takes all logic out of it. There's no room to consider where the best value is. It's you either check the boxes A through F or you don't. End of story.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've talked about it before with the vape industry, how, I'll explain to people how the laws and regulations are, and they'll say, well, that doesn't make any sense, or that's completely illogical. And I said, yes, you're absolutely correct. But your problem is that you're going in with the presumption that things government does should be logical or make sense. And if you abandon that before you start looking into these things, then all the pieces line up. Now, at the same time, when you look at things like that, do you talk to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and say, doesn't this seem stupid?
There is a ton of relationship building in this process. So it gets convoluted. You need to talk to multiple MLAs and ministers. There is so much crossover. So, for example, if you want water or sewer grant funding, you have to talk to the Minister of Transportation, which seems a little counterintuitive in a lot of ways. As soon as it's a joint project, well, now we have to loop in the Minister of Municipal Affairs. But you should also keep your own MLA in the loop too, because they're supposed to be the advocate for you. So when you're lobbying and trying to push for changes, it's not one person. You have to get an entire team on board. You have to make sure that they're communicating between each other so they all agree and understand the issue for you to even have a shot.
Okay. So property taxes, you got your mill rate, figuring out how much each individual home pays, and then half of that money goes to the provincial government, right? Or something roughly like half the money. Why not? Okay, just I'll throw out the question and then correct me. Why not just let the local community keep that property tax money, and then now you've kind of solved the problem and gotten away from you having to lobby to get your own damn money back, and it's proportional to the population. So that hamlet with 6 houses has a proportionate amount of funding, and that subdivision with 150 houses has its proportionate amount of funding.
So at a high level, you're right about property taxes. So there's a whole series of requisitions that they're flow through. We collect them on behalf of the province. The big ones are schools, senior housing, that sort of thing, and it just flows right through. There is a fight brewing over this, and the city of Calgary sort of sent a shot across the bow when they sent a $10 million bill to the province for collecting their taxes. So this will get more airtime as it comes up. I do not like collecting other people's taxes. It's a dishonest way of doing it. If they allowed us to strictly collect our taxes for our needs, then we could look at eliminating a bunch of these grants. We shouldn't have to fund other levels of government through our taxes. And it's dishonest in the sense that our ratepayers, they got upset when the school tax went up 12%, and they take it out on the municipality because that's where the bill came from. But if the province was transparent about this, they would just own it and take it out of provincial taxes. But they're quite content for us to be the bad guys on this situation.
Well, that's why it never will change, because right now they don't have to deal with that problem. It's a lot of angry people pointing their fingers, just like you said, at their counselor instead of at the province.
Let's assume here for a quick second, you all get elected, right? You all get elected here in a week's time, and you get in. If you could accomplish, I don't know, one thing, like I don't know if you can accomplish 10 things, but let's assume you could go in and have an effect on one thing. What would be the one thing you want to have an effect on? Drew, maybe I'll go around the horn on this.
Geez, that's tough to narrow it down to one thing. Can it be two?
Sure.
I guess I would like to instill a level of communication and trust between the general public and municipal governance, because it seems that as municipal governments has sort of pushed people away, people are stepping back even further. Like there's less involvement from the general public. And I would like to see the days of old town halls come back and people actually get in and get more of a direct democracy feel back into municipal politics. Now, secondly, I guess I'd like to carry that same sort of theory through to the RMA and bring people together and strengthen our ability to govern ourselves rurally as a group and strengthen the powers that we have within the provincial government, just as Smith is trying to do within Canada.
Shanon?
I would like to look at the financial resources that are currently in place and see where some more money can be found for the front lines and actual staff working with students. I mean, we can rail against provincial funding till the cows come home, but at the end of the day, we've only got the money in front of us, and we need to make sure that we're stewarding that extremely well. And also to do some listening to see what's working and what's not, because I feel like in the public sector, what tends to happen is that there are initiatives, but nobody looks back to see if they've been very successful or not. There's actually something on the website saying how great it was, but that's not necessarily the actual impact on the ground.
So if I hear you correctly, you want to go in and cut some bureaucracy. I feel like Twos should be just smiling ear to ear right now.
Oh, Twos is just getting twisted all over here, thinking of all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Shannon's going in and slashing some of the upper tops budget. You are all gone. We're pushing that money down. Shaun, your thoughts on something that you'd like to try and have some influence on?
I think that probably a big thing for me is regulation. I really dislike being told what I can and cannot do on my land. And I know that that's it's like a double-edged sword, because like we were talking about green energy, you want to put some kind of regulation in place, but at the same time, as a landowner, I don't want somebody telling me what I can do on my own land. So I think for me, something I'd really like to try to do is reduce regulation as much as possible while still allowing things to run smoothly.
Justin, your second term, if you get elected again, what's something that you've had your eyes on this now for several years? What do you think, eyes wide open, if you are elected again, what you might want to have some influence on?
Eyes wide open, I would say whatever the game plan you have entering is likely to change drastically. There will be curveballs and hot button items that arise that you never saw coming. And that will become the all-encompassing priority at that point. To give you an example of that, we have a village who is its own municipality on the inside of our county boundaries, and Municipal Affairs is doing a viability study on them. They're choosing to wait till after the election to not sway votes or put a finger on the scale. This will be a huge undertaking, because these very, very small municipalities, the reason they stay viable and functioning, and I use that term loosely, for so long, is they endlessly kick the can down the road on all infrastructure upgrades and investments until it is deteriorated to the point where it's held together by shoelaces and bubble gum. Then when they dissolve, it is tens of millions of dollars for the municipality to take over. And we are going through that right now, and we don't know how it's going to end. So we're currently installing a reservoir and pumping station in a municipality that will partially serve us, because we're putting a truck fill there too. But primarily it's to replace the old standpipe that has been repaired so many times the contractor won't even warranty it anymore, to ensure that a municipality not made up by our taxpayers has safe drinking water. And we still feel like it's the right thing to do, because they're our neighbors, it's one global community. But we know in a year's time we might be on the hook for all of it anyway, so we might as well utilize what grant money we can get to offset our costs, because a year from now we might be doing the sewer, the streets, and the sidewalks too.
Twos, is there anything else you want to get to? I hate to speed away a conversation. Like, I feel like we've covered a huge gamut today, like of green, immigration, schools, like all the different things. Is there anything, folks, we're missing before we let you out of here?
I think we skipped healthcare.
Sure, Drew. If you want to talk about it. Drew?
No, that wasn't me. That was Shaun.
Yeah,
was it
me.
Shaun?
I
Sorry.
said healthcare, because we just have to throw the other big thing into the conversation while we're at it. I really didn't have anything to talk about, but we haven't covered it. So,
well, I think a big thing for all of you is October 20th, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so to make sure that if you're sitting in Alberta, you're listening to this, that you mark that date on your calendar, you make sure you show up, you vote. And I don't know about twos, I can speak for myself, but my hat's off to all of you for putting your hat in the ring. It takes, we've been talking about this for how many years now? Good people getting involved, common sense folks trying to get in and help their communities, and you're all doing it. So, I mean, the best of luck to you, but October 20th is a big day for Alberta. Circle that on your calendar. Make sure you get out and vote. Any other final thoughts before we let you out of here?
Well, I just kind of wanted to touch on something Shanon was saying before about actually looking at the effectiveness of things as they've been implemented. And and it kind of ties into, I can't remember who. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how in the States everybody loves football, and watching the game tape is such a big deal. And now with everything, the internet's forever. We've got the ability to go and look back and say, okay, well, this is what they said it was going to be when they started rolling it out. Here's how much they said it was going to cost. Here's how much it did cost, and here's how much of a difference it made. And I don't know. I feel like that would be easier on a local level than things like the carbon tax, where they could just say, oh, well, just think about how much worse things would have been if we hadn't had the carbon tax. But at the same time, I think in every level of politics, there really ought to be a lot more focus on reviewing the game tape and making coaching decisions accordingly.
Yeah, I think we could spend more time and effort into assessing how things really went and less time on the public relations to manage people's perceptions of how things went.
Yeah.
Well put.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, appreciate you hopping on and doing this. It's been a pleasure. I mean, it's always interesting to get this many people on a conversation and then deal with internet connections and everything else. The next one we should probably do in studio. That'd be a ton of fun to have you all together. But I appreciate it. Thanks, Twos, for putting this together. Thanks, everybody, for hopping on. And best of luck on October 20th. We'll be hoping and pulling for all you folks to get elected. It's always great to see people, I don't know, get in that ring that is, we've had all the different reasons on why probably people don't want to get involved, because there is a lot of problems and they are going to suck up a ton of your time and energy. Either way, my hat's off to you for stepping up in your communities and trying to get involved.
Thanks, Shaun, and to everyone out there, get out and vote. We're putting ourselves out there, so whether it's for us or not, get out and have your say.
Absolutely.
But definitely vote for these guys.
Thanks for doing this, guys.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Alex.